Marriage, a show where we examine modern marriage from every angle, including our own relationship. I'm Allison Raskin, a New York Times bestselling author, relationship coach, and mental health advocate who convinced my husband to do this show with me.
And I'm John Blakesley, Allison's husband, and I happen to be in a relationship with a beautiful woman who loves to stay at home and nestle up by the fire. Sugar.
We don't have a fireplace.
Well, Sugar and I have our own apartment.
Oh, no. That would be such a betrayal.
If we're running away together?
Yeah. Well, you can't run away. I legally own her.
We'll see about that.
We have an old-fashioned episode for you today. We're going to be interviewing writer and podcaster Jo Piazza all about tradwives.
Let me ask you this, because I was thinking, like, oh, would Allison be into this tradwife thing ever? And I think the answer is no. It would be, like, terrible for you.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, you often talk about, like, a fantasy you have of moving to Colorado and starting an animal sanctuary. And I wonder if that's, like, kind of, like, it's the same escapist kind of thing, right?
So I think what's different there is that my primary purpose would be saving animals rather than being a wife.
But isn't it also a simpler, calmer life, disconnected from the internet, caring for animals? There's something sort of maternal about it. Don't you think they're, like, a little related?
I often wonder, like, if I went and did that life, could I, like, not write? Like, could I just, like, fully be in a life where I'm not writing?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, it seems like I'd have to, like, we got to go do it. We got to see what it's like. Or would it be like, that's my life, but then I'm also somehow still always working on, like, a book about it?
Right. Like, would you find that fulfilling? Or would you also need, like, the validation of social media? Like, would you want to be, like, having your Instagram account being about you caring for these animals?
Yeah.
Or do you... Yeah, so you would want that.
Well, no,
right?
I think about that too. Like, what would happen if I just suddenly stopped making content and I stopped getting validation from strangers on the internet?
Right.
Could I handle that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be a really big shift because that's been a part of my life since I was like 25 years old,
right,
or something. Like, I don't know what it is like to just, like, not be constantly putting out content and having people respond to it.
Right. You're constantly, in some sense, performing.
Yeah.
For these. And now you don't do what they do of, like, hey, we're going to rent out a like barn or whatever and talk about, like, how great it is to make your own cheese, or I've never seen any of these things, but, like, there's a performer in you who's going to want to show your animal refuge lifestyle.
And I wonder, like, if that's, like, makes my life worse or better. Or maybe it, like, ends up being a net neutral because there are so many wonderful positives that come from it. And I've always been creative and I've always wanted to be a performer. It's not like this, like, came out of nowhere and I just, like, stumbled into it. It was very much a strategic choice based on my interests. But there is something, like, appealing about the idea of just, like, writing a book every few years and not having to do anything else.
Yeah.
Of, like, the constant maintenance of being present online and making weekly content.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very drained from it, but also it's, like, now such a part of my, like, mechanism that I think it would be, like, to go cold turkey would feel, like, so bizarre.
Yeah. You're addicted.
Yeah. For better or worse?
For better or worse?
Probably worse.
Probably.
Well, except that if I wasn't doing that, we wouldn't have this wonderful show.
That's true.
With everyone's favorite segment that's about to start. Marriage Moment. Da, 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 da.
Normally, they're, like, much more upbeat, quick sounds. Today, it was kind of like I thought of like a choir.
Yeah, I'm setting a different tone. A more majestic tone.
For, like, the tradwives. It's like I imagine, like, the organ at a small rural church going off.
Perfect. A happy accident. So my marriage moment for this week will take us back to a time we talk about often on this show because so many things happened during it, which is when my mother was sick. And my mom, I originally flew home because she'd been admitted to the hospital, but like 2 weeks later, she got readmitted to the hospital. And I was there. I think it was during the second time, right? One of the times my mom was in the hospital, I get a call from John saying that he overdosed our dog Phantom.
Oh no. Yeah, I did do that. I'm sorry, Phantom.
That I had already given him his medication because Phantom has like severe nerve pain in his face and is like a special needs dog. And I think I'd already given him the medicine or whatever. You gave him the medicine too.
Yeah.
And then we're on the phone with poison control and they were like, you got to take him to the ER for dogs.
It's terrible.
And so, like, it was just like that you were, like, calling me to be like, yes, you're at the hospital with your mom, but I will be bringing our dog to the dog hospital because I overdosed
Yeah,
him.
you were at the human ER and I was at the dog ER.
Yeah, he had to be, like, left for hours for observation.
I know. And he was, honestly, he was
fine.
He vomited, and then after he vomited, he was fine.
And it was, like, so much money, and it was, like, so crazy.
Money. Yeah.
But, like,
Poor Phantom.
It was also, like, you know, you called, and it was an instance of, like, I knew you were more upset about what had happened than me.
Yeah, well, I was beating myself up about it, yeah.
Yeah, you were, like, so mad at yourself and felt so guilty, and I was like, it happens. It's like, just take him. I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, I appreciated that. He was fine, thank God.
But, like, you know, we are all just, like, gonna mess things up. Like, I mess shit up all the time. I, like, do mistakes all the time, and it's, like, just kind of, like, giving each other grace.
Right. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and he was, you know, if you'd killed him, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, that would have been rough. That would have been really rough. Oh, good thing he pulled through.
What's yours?
So my marriage moment is as we were preparing to get married, and we had talked about getting a prenup.
Yes.
And this is something that you had for years been like saying publicly to women, like, get a prenup, protect yourself. And I believe your parents even said something like, they didn't felt like I needed necessarily to do a prenup for them. Like, that was not like a condition that they had asked for, I think. And, you know, there's a disparity in wealth between our two families. And so we agreed, though, that we were going to talk to attorneys to, like, see certain things that we had figured out, like, oh, this is something we need to keep in mind, and that there's protections either way. And so I had this funny moment when I was talking with the attorney, and I was saying to her, like, yeah, you know, they want me to get this prenup and said to talk to the lawyer. But, you know, I think we just want, like, a basic, like, boilerplate, like, you know, just a couple things here that we care about. And she was like, I've been doing this for 15 years, whatever, 20 years. And she said, I've been doing this for a long time. And if they want you to get a prenup, they are trying to keep something from you. You have to trust me in this, that I know everything seems great now, and I hope everything will remain great. But if they are telling you to talk to an attorney and make a prenup, then that means, like, they are trying to protect something. And I don't think that we should just, because she, like, quoted me, like, a large number of, like, what she was going to charge. And I was like, I don't think that's necessary. Like, I really don't think so. And she was like, you have to trust me on this one. Like if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. And like, basically, and also, like, you have to pay me a lot of money. And I was like, well, I really don't think so. She's like, I know. That's what people think, but you got to trust me. And I was like, hear me out. My wife is an author, and she's a writer, and she's coming out with a book called, I think, Conversations About Modern Marriage, in which she recommends people to get a prenup. And I think part of this is she doesn't want to look kind of hypocritical. That she didn't get a prenup when she's telling other people to get a prenup.
Right.
And I said, I don't think the parents really care that much. I really think it's about this author hypocrisy thing. And she's like silent for a moment. And she was like, I got to be honest, that's the first time I've ever heard that one. I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, I don't know what to tell you then. I guess it would only be $4,000 then and blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately we decided that thankfully the state of California cared about like already has in its law the things that we cared about. And so we actually didn't wind up doing it. But anyway, it was just like a funny reminder of like being married to you requires like explanations to people about things that like, yeah, she's probably never heard that one before, that like just got to get one so you don't look like a hypocrite to the people who read your book.
And I like struggled with that, but then it's also like you have to be practical, right? And the attorney I talked to was like, yeah, you're in a state where the things you're talking about aren't really going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Because it was more about like what would happen if one of us within our career like made a ton of money rather than like coming in with these like assets that we had to protect.
Right.
And it's a community property like law like state. And so like the agreement that we ultimately came to is that if we ever left California, then we would get a postnup, but there's like no real need to get a prenup at this moment.
Right.
That's so funny. Yeah, and I felt guilty about it too, but I was also like, we can't afford this prenup.
It was so expensive.
So expensive.
For this thing that was like, I don't know. I think just let them call you a hypocrite. It's like way too much money. Like unless they want to pay for this, like,
Plus, I think I was early enough in the book draft that I could include that, so I didn't come off as a hypocrite.
Oh, yeah.
I think in the book it explains what I did.
Owned up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important to know the laws in your state because they vary widely.
They do.
And my parents are keeping these from you. We have a precious stone stored underground.
The Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome back to Starter Marriage. It's time to pop the question. This is the part of the episode where we deep dive into the main topic with an incredible guest. And this week we are joined by best-selling author Jo Piazza to talk about the tradwife phenomenon. Jo has researched and covered this topic quite a bit on her very popular podcast, Under the Influence, and her latest book, Everyone is Lying to You, features a tradwife influencer. So we're coming at this from every angle. And to start, because I just learned today that not everyone knows what this is, what is a tradwife?
Yeah, not everyone knows what this is. I mean, I've been on the road for the book tour for Everyone is Lying to You for about 10 days now. And I always start out by explaining tradwife because first off, tradwife is very, very different from stay-at-home moms. Stay-at-home mom is they are the CEOs of their family and their household. They are boss ladies. They are doing the work. Tradwife is a social media phenomenon. It's not real, and it's short for traditional wife. And we started seeing them on social media about 2 years ago. And there are these women that you see in their perfect dresses with their perfect barrel curls, running through a meadow on their ranch somewhere out west with their 19 children, hanging out with their chickens. And their messaging is, oh my gosh, look at my perfect life. You could get this too if you just quit your job, homestead, raise your kids yourself, and also buy my $50 high protein flour. That's what's going to make you happy. That will make you happy. And the irony of this quote unquote traditional lifestyle they're promoting is these women are boss babes. Okay. They are making so much money off of their social media and off of the things they sell people that usually their husbands are working for them. Even though they're claiming, I'm just very traditional, I'm submissive to my husband, he's the breadwinner, he controls all of our finances. All of that is a lie, hence everyone is lying to you. But I love getting to talk to you guys about this because I think it brings up a lot of questions in a marriage about quote unquote traditional marriages and roles within a marriage. So I'm so curious to chat.
Yeah, I mean, I was just mentioning this to Allison before, which one of the things I find really interesting about this phenomenon is this term traditional wife, because it's not really what wives have traditionally done. Like being a wife 100 years ago, even less, was like a very difficult, like even if they were doing homework, they were working to do the family's laundry and it took hours and it was back-breaking work. It was not a glamorous, I'm going to bake a sourdough and run barefoot through the meadow kind of thing when my husband comes home. Instead, it feels like this is an idealized 1950s view of the world. And so, it actually isn't calling back to like some harder era. It's calling back to this very specific, culturally conservative era. And I wonder what that appeal is for this. I understand why like conservatives in general find that time appealing, but like specifically for these women, what they find appealing about that, or do you think it's a just totally cynical like marketing ploy?
I think all of those things can be true.
Yeah.
And everything that you said is so smart, because there's nothing traditional about this. It is a fantasy. It is
Right.
a mashup of what you mentioned, right? 1950s sitcom America, not
Right.
even real 1950s America. But like, the June Cleaver, and then, what we saw in Mad Men, Betty Draper, but of course, things did not turn out okay for her.
Yeah.
a mashup of that with Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie, but ignoring the fact that Ma Ingalls was dealing with 4 kids with dysentery, a very difficult husband, and living in a dirt hole on the side of the creek.
Right.
So like, again, this never existed, but it's working really well on social media. When it first happened, I thought it was going to be a blip, and then I thought it was going to be a joke. But now millions of people, millions of women on both sides of the political aisle follow these accounts, and they're influenced by them and their values. And I think it is because women are very, very burnt out by corporate America. We were told to lean in and be girl bosses and do it all. And the world is not set up to allow us to do that. So we look at these idealized things and it's like, oh my gosh, maybe baking bread all day would be nice, even though I have no actual interest in baking bread. So it feels like a soft place to land. But then it's influencing us with these faux traditional values that I think are actually really dangerous for marriages and for society.
That was sort of my theory as well, is that like when the other option is to work this like torturous 9 to 5 and still not be able to pay for the lifestyle that you want, then like anything else is going to seem appealing. And then you're also tied into all of the shame and expectations of motherhood, right? Like if you're not like a totally present mother, and if you're not giving everything to your kids 100% of the time, then you're flawed in some way. So this is this way to feel like you are totally nailing the most important part of your identity, and you can like let go of this capitalistic nightmare that is like trying to have a career in 2025.
Yeah. And that's the undercurrent of it, right? But that is also part of the fantasy and the lie, because these accounts strip away all of the labor of taking care of the home. You mentioned laundry, right?
Yeah.
We never actually see the drudgery of doing laundry or cleaning a toilet. The houses are always just magically clean.
Right.
And we never see the actual labor of the caregiving. The kids are just always somehow shiny and happy and bouncy, and there's so many of them all over the place. So of course caregiving is work. Of course any domestic labor is work, but they're acting like it's so easy breezy. And we know that that's complete BS.
Right.
I'm a little surprised how popular it is with women, because I think maybe when I first encountered this, I viewed it as a male fantasy, like a fantasy like that might be aimed at men. I mean, so much of like your Instagram feed is beautiful women, trying to impress men. That like having
That's
this.
not my Instagram feed, but
when
it
I
might
had
be
Instagram,
yours.
It's not mine.
mine, yeah. When I had Instagram,
Wait, I'm so curious what's on your feed, because I think it's men's feeds are so specific. My husband's is hyper specific. I want to know what was on yours.
Mine is so funny and so annoyingly revealing. It's like a lot of really long-legged, beautiful babes
Nice.
with one or two baseball related things, sports. And then I remember like reading one amidst all these like beautiful, probably AI generated women, bunch of baseball things, and then one thing that talked about depression. And it was like, and I was like, okay, so I'm like a depressed baseball fan who really likes brunettes. And I was like, that's like annoyingly accurate. It's just surprising that like, yeah, that you'd think that the female fantasy would be the fact that the husband is working for the wife behind the scenes, but actually the fantasy that they're living or trying to sell is that, you know, oh, I'm just a submissive bread making waif.
No, the fantasy is ease.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, that's the allure here. The fantasy is happiness. And it's capitalizing, I think, on so many of our pain points. And because you mentioned guilt and shame as a mother, that we constantly feel like we're failing. And we see these accounts and we're like, oh, they're not failing because everyone seems so happy. Everything is clean. Their house is somehow not perfectly white and somehow not covered in handprints of ketchup on their walls. And they don't seem like they're covered in every possible bodily fluid possible. And no one peed on their foot today. So like, I think that we're very attracted to the softness of it and the escapist fantasy. I mean, the same way we get pushed in media, things like, why don't you enjoy a farm girl summer? It just includes getting off your phone and picking your tomatoes and reading on a gingham quilt outside by a creek, when in real life, farmers are among the hardest workers among us, right? Like farm life is really freaking hard. But those kinds of accounts do really well because I think we're all craving rest. And we're all craving a break. And we never see the husbands in these accounts, or we very rarely see the husbands in these accounts. The idea is that they're the scaffolding for all of this, but we don't see, again, the emotional labor of being a spouse, which is so much. I mean, I love my husband. I am married to such a good guy. He is amazing, right? But I've been on the road without him, and I have so much mental space and emotional space from being by myself just for the past 48 hours. And so, but we don't see that, right? And that's why you never see the husbands in these accounts, unless they're far off in a field and kind of blurry and just gazing off into the distance.
Oh, so that's part of the fantasy, is that you have a little distance from your husband.
Indeed, because they're working so hard to make win the bread all day while you're making the bread. I mean, it's, you know, you can get into the puns all day long.
I'd love to hear more about like the dangerous undercurrents of this kind of basically propaganda.
It's propaganda, you know, and it started out, they really blew up during the pandemic, right? Because, and I think all of us were looking for homebody hobbies at that point, but that's when a lot of these accounts went from like 100,000 followers to 16 million followers. And because we were all looking for an escape from our regular lives. And now what we know is that a lot of these hashtag tradwife accounts are very much financed by hyper conservative groups that are trying to oppress women's rights. And so the undercurrent of the messaging is, don't you want to check out of the workforce? Why bother fighting for equal pay when you don't have to work anymore? And you'll be so much happier if you just have 5, 6, 7 babies, get off birth control, in addition to the messaging that birth control is dangerous for you. And this is the one that we can pretty much track really well right now, because that messaging has been happening for about 2 years. And I talk to really smart young women all the time who are like, well, I got off my birth control, totally. And I'm like, why? And they're like, TikTok told me to. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, TikTok and Instagram, everyone is telling me that I'll be infertile for the rest of my life, and then I'm going to be attracted to my cousin. And these are actual messages on these accounts. And I mean, I say to them, I'm like, I didn't love birth control. I was on it for a long time, but it helped me not get pregnant by every douchebag that I dated in my 20s and 30s. And then I got to have 3 gorgeous kids with my lovely husband that I finally married.
I loved birth control. I
I mean, it like gave me headaches. I was like, I didn't like it, but whatever.
I didn't get a period on it. It was fantastic.
You know,
Ugh.
I want to bring up that what you were saying about the why go to work when you can stay home and you can
Mhm.
relax and you can have what you would get from working anyway, but staying home and being with your kids, which sounds nice to me.
Mm.
But I think it's also a part of a much longer tradition of this kind of thinking. Like my brain immediately went to Phyllis Schlafly, the
Yeah.
conservative activist who
Mhm.
was maybe, if not single-handedly, very influential in defeating the Equal Rights Amendment. And one of
Yes.
her arguments that she would make is like, equal rights. I don't want to fight in Vietnam. Like
Uh-huh.
women shouldn't be drafted into fights and fight these wars. That's men's work. You know, like she would use aren't there advantages to not having equal rights
Mhm.
for us? And so it's this really like sinister history, I think, that this movement is an inheritor of. And I wonder if you've done any thinking about that as like its place in history.
Constantly. I mean, it's like you live in my brain, okay? I mean, I think that these women are absolutely the modern day Phyllis Schlafly's.
Yeah.
Because again, Phyllis was out there outside the home working and touting the benefits of women staying in the home.
Right.
But this is coming after, I mean, again, everything that's old is new again. During World War II, we saw women go back into the workforce or go into the workforce, right? Like really go into the workforce for the first time in jobs that were traditionally male. And I mean, there was even paid childcare at that time, subsidized, like government funded childcare. And then the men came back and they're like, well, we have to create a whole propaganda campaign to get women back in the homes because we can't have them taking men's jobs. That's when we saw this whole propaganda of look at this gorgeous washing machine, look at all of these appliances. It's going to be so easy when you go back. And then all of the Hollywood 1950s sitcom propaganda. And the reaction to that was the women did it. They were coerced, a lot of them, a certain, class of women at least. And then they were miserable. They're popping Valium like candy. And then we get the feminism movement of the 60s and 70s, and we have the Phyllises fighting against the Equal Rights Amendment. And then we see the backlash and the swing again into the Reagan conservative years in the 80s. And then the backlash to that, obviously Clinton, Obama, and now we're in a different period, one that is, I think, far more dangerous because I think that social media influence is so much more powerful than television influence because you're very siloed. These people are on screens, glued to the palms of your hands. They feel like you're friends and they're injecting this messaging. I mean, the messaging goes to the point of telling young women, don't go to college unless you're just going to get an MRS, unless you're just going to get a husband. You don't need to go to college. And young women are believing this.
It's terrifying, and I think there's also the element of like when it was sitcoms in the 50s, you knew what was being fed to people, right? Because you were all watching the same thing. Here, like you don't even understand what they're being told or the level of like the messaging and the takeaways and how nefarious it is because that's not your feed. And so then it's like so confusing of how did these people get indoctrinated to this level because you're not even seeing what they're seeing.
Exactly. I mean, your feed could just be sexy brunettes, a little bit of baseball, and slight hints of depression. Whereas my husband's, which is so funny, is he's constantly sold like solar generators.
Yeah, they were always pushing solar generators on me too.
Yeah. Like, don't you want to protect your family? And sandwiches. And I'm like, you know what? They're also not wrong. Like, you love sandwiches. And sustainability. So like, but we're not seeing that. And so when I talk to women about this, and like I said, I've been on the road for 10 days. I started out in Indiana and we filled this historic old theater right next to the bookstore with young women, actually women of all ages, outside Indianapolis, who have had all their reproductive rights taken away at the state level, and they told me, they're like, the younger ones are like, but this is in my feed all the time. And I have friends who just don't care because they're like, whatever, it doesn't impact me. I'm just going to get married. I just want a ton of kids. I would never. And then the older women are like, I've never heard of this. I don't see any of this. And so
Never
they can't
heard of what?
That because they're not being fed these messages. These
Tradwives?
messages.
They had never heard of
Tradwives. No, a lot of them have not. If you are 50 plus, most people have not heard of tradwives.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think there's also like so much of the moment is just like how dire life is right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like the perfect opportunity to take advantage of people because the American dream is dead. Like, nobody has health insurance. There's like, so where there's all these genocides going on. Like it's just so dark. And there's this element of a tradwife being the thing you can control, which is your home.
Exactly. It seems like it's an isolated sphere. And so that's why it's just so attractive. And I get it. And the messaging and the branding is awesome. And, some of it is really innocuous. It's like, I'm going to go milk this goat now while I'm wearing a baby on my chest, in a long flowing, very bosom showing dress. I ordered, there's one account, which shows like this very pastoral life, called Ballerina Farm online. And the conservative EV magazine had the CEO of Ballerina Farm, Hannah Nealman, on its cover wearing what they called the raw milkmaid dress. And so it is a dress with like, you look kind of like the St. Pauli beer girl. Okay. And I ordered it and it has a corset too. It sucks you right in. And I have not yet milked a cow in it. I've tried to find a cow. No one wants to give me one. But I did change a diaper at the playground and my boob fell out of it. Okay. Because like we were not meant to labor in dresses that look like this.
Why did you get it?
Oh, I got it to wear on book tour. That was the goal. I got it, and I got it to like test drive it to be like, what's it like to wear this in real life? And number one, I found that I'm constantly tripping over it. It's constantly just like revealing more of me than I want to reveal. But then also people stop me on the street and tell me that I look beautiful.
Wow. I mean,
I know.
It is interesting how entwined this movement is and this conservative thinking with advertising and consumerism. Like you brought up this point about post World War II, look at this amazing washer dryer. You're going to be able to do everything so easily at home. And now even with this, it's like, look at my lifestyle, buy my whey protein, buy this dress that I'm probably selling you. And so it's like, it's not just a fantasy in the sense that I'm going out to live in the woods, or like, I often have a fantasy that an escapist fantasy of like sailing the world, like sailing around, like that's like my male fantasy or something.
But do you think you'd actually like it?
Honestly,
let's dissect all of it.
Honestly, I have an ongoing joke with Allison that we're going to do this. So this makes me break the joke, but no. No, you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I like to kind of like every now and then check in on these people who like live on these boats and see what like their life is like. And there's something I like about that, but no, I mean, I'm not actually going to do it. And I mean, granted, I'm not like in that world so much. I think people really do follow them and really are more sucked in by the escapism of that. But they've never tried, like, I've never been pushed anything to buy from them. Like it feels like this tradwife thing is a lot more about you've used the term brand multiple times in this conversation, and it's like very entwined with this, like, I am a brand. This is about consumerism, like, which is kind of a funny thing to pair. I guess modern conservatism has to reckon with this itself, is like, it's a funny thing to pair this like pastoral, simple lifestyle with like, but also subscribe to like, this like hyper consumerist, complicated economy.
And also the idea that like you're going to be able to go find a man who makes enough money to support you and your children on a single income. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not possible. I mean, I talk about the economics of this all the time because, the average American man makes around 64, 70 grand. The average, and then, that's pre-taxes. The average American household is spending above 75 grand. Okay. So like, it is not possible. Like, where are all these rich men that just want to support women staying home? Who is raising families on a single income? We don't, and then factor in health insurance and everything that is happening with our falling apart school system. It is not possible because this life is a fantasy. And what we don't see is the generational wealth behind the scenes. Another thing we often don't see that I talk about in the book that people are blown away by this because it's a novel. Okay. Everyone Is Lying to You is a novel because I was like, oh my God, this world is so ripe for murder. I'm going to write a thriller about it.
Yeah.
But people have been asking me at these book events, they're like, is this part of it satire? And I'm like, oh no, this is real. Influencers often rent other houses or sometimes entire farms to stage their content. They don't actually own these things or these spaces. They're almost like TV or movie sets that they're renting by the hour, like a seedy motel, in order to shoot their perfect seeming lives. And that's a shock to a lot of people. And I'm like, no, because this is just media. I mean, it's just media and capitalism. It is the same as watching reality television, essentially. And I used to be a celebrity reporter, so I covered the rise of reality stars. I probably contributed to it in a very toxic way. But I think it's, like I said, it's just the same thing in a different medium. Also, I have a book that you guys have to read in book club together.
What is the book?
Well, I mean, obviously mine, but then also it's called A Marriage at Sea.
Okay.
It's nonfiction. It just came out, but it reads like a novel, like a thriller. And it's about a couple that were about to sail around the world together. And then their sailboat is breached by a whale and they're afloat at sea, adrift for 118 days.
Whoa. All right.
I would have been like, not worth it. I'm checking out.
Yeah.
Day 3, I'd be like, this was a good run.
Yeah. You're going down.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, okay, so they're renting out these spaces to like do these photo shoots. So are they just totally clear-eyed about like the lie that they're selling? Or like, to what degree are they aware that what they are doing is kind of cynical? And to what degree have they bought into their own fantasy about this is their life?
I think there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum like there is anything. And, I've interviewed dozens of tradwives, dozens of former tradwives, i.e. tradwives that have gotten divorced. And there are some people who are very bought into this lifestyle who are also selling you things, but they truly believe in it. But I would say the vast majority now that we've seen how lucrative it can be are in it for the money.
What are the reasons they get divorced? Do you find there to be a trend around the fame and the success of it?
It's the fame and the success of it, that the husband can't really handle the wife becoming the breadwinner, can't really handle the amount of attention that she's getting. He doesn't want to be in the background. I mean, it's typically the economic concerns that end up fraying at the marriage.
I also am like going back to the idea that like there's such limited quantities of heterosexual men who could provide you with this lifestyle, right?
Yes.
It also sort of then creates this competition between women to secure that resource, right? Okay, I'm going to college just to find a rich husband. I better beat out my best friend to get the one guy that's available. Is there an undercurrent of that as well?
I think so. I mean, I think that these accounts also intrinsically breed competition among women because they do make it seem like there are scarce resources that women are fighting each other for, and that, i.e., these men are scarce resources, which they are. I mean, to be honest, and also the kinds of men that are necessarily going to be like, I would prefer that I control everything. You give up your agency. You don't have access to your own finances. I don't think they're necessarily the kind of men that are going to stick around once you get a little bit older, right? So like, I think and that's why we've also seen a lot of divorces because, I mean, some of the women did find this man who would support this kind of lifestyle. And the second they turned 30, they're out the door, and they had a prenup, and they're screwed because they have no work history and they have no means to support themselves.
Let me ask you, you wrote this novel, which I think this is like maybe the first novelist we've had on. And like, can you tell me a little bit about the main character and why you chose her as a representative of this world? Like, I'm curious at what you, who have like been in this world and talked to people in this world, like of all the things to bring out in a character, like you made certain choices, and I wonder what those choices were.
Yeah. And I love that you guys had me on as a novelist. I mean, I'm also a journalist and a nonfiction writer, and I approach all of my novels, all of my fiction, the same as I do my nonfiction. I report the hell out of it. And so I really immersed myself in the world of tradwives. And one of our characters, her name is Rebecca. She is a tradwife influencer with millions of followers who follow her gorgeous life with her 6 children on her beautiful idyllic ranch with her soft-spoken husband, Gray, who, again, we only see off in the distance. He never really speaks. And their 3-legged goat, Tripod, who also has an Instagram account with millions of followers. And I chose this because it's kind of the quintessential kind of account that is very good at luring you in, because it's very beautiful. It seems very idyllic. It seems very, very soft. But with Rebecca's character, the fun part is peeling away the onion and showing the different layers of deception below the perfect life that she's projecting to the public, and showing that absolutely nothing is perfect. She is hustling behind the scenes. They are actually desperate for money because farms lose money. And she's doing this to support her entire family. And that is creating rifts in her marriage.
What do you think drew you to this world? Like, it's clearly a fantasy with secrets and darkness beneath it. And like, are you attracted to this fantasy? Or like, as a writer, like, I'm just curious, like what, as a writer, like setting a story in this world, there must be a reason why this world has spoken to you so much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started the Under the Influence podcast, which is a deep dive into the world of influencers 5 years ago, to dissect my own mom guilt and shame, because I had my second baby, my first daughter, and she came out of my womb and stared at me like right in the eyes in the hospital and was like, "We ride at dawn, bitch." And she didn't sleep for a year. So all I could do, rocking her every night, was scroll on my phone. And I was scrolling Instagram, and I was being served these mom influencers who had this like perfect seeming existence. They were so happy. Their babies were so happy. They were sleeping through the night, and they were all trying to sell me something to fix me, to fix what I was apparently doing wrong. When now, 3 kids later, I'm like, well, 1 more kid after number 2. I'm not crazy. But you know, after being a mom for 8 years, I'm like, oh, this is just parenting. Yeah. It's just hard. I'm not failing. There's no shame in this game. But I'm so attracted to it because I want to burst the bubble to get rid of the guilt and the shame that women feel looking at these perfect seeming accounts and thinking we're not doing enough as a mother, thinking we're not doing enough as a wife, thinking we're not doing enough to fulfill our purpose with our job, because these accounts do make us feel that way. And I think if we understand the smoke and mirrors around it, then it's a lot easier to just accept, you know, our own lives are messy and beautiful and funny and confusing, and they can be all of those things at once.
Yeah. So funny, because the idea of giving up my agency is so alarming to me. Like, I just like it like that lifestyle feels like a nightmare rather than a fantasy. But I do, you know, there is like this element, you know, not to get like too far into this in our marriage, of like a lot of times like you supporting my work and like my career and things, and like even like that I like made you co-host this podcast with me. And so, but I think that the difference is perhaps that that's how we met. Yeah. Rather, like I was already in this role, and like that was like, okay, like, do you want in or not? Versus like if your wife suddenly becomes famous once you're already married and used to them as like a regular private person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when Nick married me, I was already an author, right? I was already a person who wrote about my life. As soon as we got engaged, I was a travel writer and editor, and I was like, I'm going to write a book called How to Be Married, about our first year of marriage, asking people around the world how to do this. Like, he knows who he married and what he got into. But there have still been shifts in our marriage of who has the quote unquote bigger job with the bigger salary at any point, and who is taking more control of the kids at any given time. And I do think that having, what we would call a more equal marriage with less defined gender roles is also, like, there's a lot of friction there sometimes, because we're often carving the path for ourselves. So I do think that's sometimes part of the fantasy. We don't want to give up agency, but we also kind of want to be told what to do to feel more content in our lives.
I was going to say that, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about it this morning, that there's something so comforting about just being told what to do. And for hundreds and hundreds of years, if your father was a farmer, then you just became a farmer. And if your father was a blacksmith, your name was probably something Smith, and you just became a blacksmith, and you didn't have to deal with this huge ambiguity and existential questions at a young age of what do you want to be when you grow up? What do I want to be?
Right.
And there's just so much choice and paths that you can take in modern life that it can be overwhelming and stressful. And there's a sort of comfort in the idea of an essentialism of, you're a man, you're going to be the breadwinner. You're a woman, you're going to stay home and you're going to milk the goat and, make the bread. And even if that is problematic, or you don't like that view of the world, there's still a certainty in it that our brains just latch onto.
Yeah, they crave it. They do. They really do. I mean, and even though we know it's not just problematic, but a complete fantasy, it's still a rubric for how to be, right? I mean, I think that there's a reason that Eve Rodsky's Fair Play does so well, because it's assigning you tasks, right? It's okay, you're totally in charge of this, instead of all of us just trying to juggle all of the things at once and figuring out what we're doing as parents and as spouses.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing for us to navigate, of what are the expectations and shifting based on health and situation, and when you're in finals versus when you're on summer break, the expectations of each other are totally different.
Right.
And having to navigate that versus every day I know this is what I will do every day of my life, and this is what you will do every day of your life.
Right. Let me ask you, because you have done this with multiple influencers, right? You've studied multiple. Is there a male version of this? I know there's Liver King or something, but that seems a bit cartoonish to me. Is there a male fantasy that also plays into these kind of conservative tropes?
Not as much. I mean, men are not on social media as much as women. I mean, it's more on TikTok, and it is the bodybuilding, protein crushing dudes, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it is in the female space.
I see. I was going to just say,
you should become one.
I always made that.
Yeah, this could be your opening.
Yeah. I was always making this joke with our friend Gabe, because they would always push me the same advertisement on Instagram to go and live in some jungle retreat somewhere on some island, and it's all bros, and you only eat steak, and you eat clean meat, clean protein, and it's just guys eating steak, and then guys doing pull-ups and lifting weights, and then writing out the business plan for your startup. It's so
there is a male version. It's the fire guys.
Oh, the fire people. Yeah,
the fire guys, the retire early guys. That's the male version of this.
Oh, that's I didn't realize that was so male coded.
Yeah, it's super male coded on social media. There's female, there's women ones, but that is probably the biggest influencing subsector that men are served on social media.
It's a way to live so that you can save enough money and retire very early and live the rest of your life, which is also kind of so you don't have to work and go, you can live a life of relaxing, but you really grind super hard for this and you live ridiculously frugally.
Right. Which is how I want to live. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
no way. And so that you can retire early and spend the rest of your life in, you know, some kind of, I don't know, contemplation where you lift weights or
probably
something.
also living frugally. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, it's also, I mean, it's also, Gabe and I would always talk about how like homoerotic a lot of these things seem are. It's like a bunch of shirtless guys in the jungle, like, you know, lifting together and eating steak. It's a very weird subculture, but I don't know.
It's all the volleyball scene of Top Gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the best films I've ever seen.
So amazing.
So we always ask our guests a final question, which is, what is one fictional couple that you think should have gotten divorced and why?
Harry and Sally from When Harry Met Sally.
Whoa.
I don't think they ever should have gotten together. I don't see the chemistry of it. I love the movie, but I just like hate them as a couple.
Wow. This is a lot for me to process.
That's a hot take.
I know it's a hot take, guys. It is. But I'm here for the controversy.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
Why do you think they don't work as a couple?
I just think that like Harry is so self-obsessed and egotistical, and Sally is so introspective and emotional. I don't really believe that opposites always attract. And I think at the end, when they finally get together, he's just fucking lonely.
See, to me, there's such a undercurrent of friendship between the two of them that they like genuinely enjoy each other's company, and that movie does like a really good job of just like showing them spending time together. And so that's why I think that they do work, because they just like find each other interesting and like to chat on the phone and spend time with each other and eat 100 lunches, you know. So I'll push back on you, but you know, to each their own. This is why we ask for people's hot takes.
I love that movie so much. I think it's a perfect movie and also a perfect romantic comedy. When I was much younger, I was very into them as a couple, but like after being married for 10 years, I'm like, I just don't think it would have lasted. That's my hot take on it.
I mean, I wonder, knowing not a lot about what I'm about to say, but I wonder to what extent like that type of man was someone that Nora Ephron was drawn to. Like,
totally, 100% it was. Yes,
wasn't she married to like, what's his name, Bob Woodward, or not Bob, or with the other one?
No. Yes,
Leonard Bernstein.
Right. Not Leonard, the other Bernstein.
Oh, not Leonard. Right.
Not Leonard. Not Leonard.
What was his name again? I forgot. Anyway, Bernstein, of Woodward and Bernstein. And so like, and there, she has another movie that like, it's very similar to him. Like, I think he's like,
it is him. It's where he had an affair when she was 8 months pregnant. Heartburn,
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's another movie that she wrote about that. And I don't know him personally. I obviously can't even remember his first name. But like, I wonder if that kind of egotistical, self-involved, but hyper intelligent and a little selfish guy is like her vision of a man, or her, like what she was drawn to in a man, and like her movies are like sorting through her attraction, but also her shit. Yeah. I wonder.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as I've gotten like a little, you know, I'm like, I'm so mature now. But I'm just like, I don't want that neurotic guy. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I just don't think, also like so many neuroses would be in their house. It would be, it just seems like a lot for me. But yes, I do think that Nora Ephron was like working out all of her shit on the page. and on the...
Well, now I gotta rewatch the movie, and I'll get back to you on current Allison's take.
All
I
right.
haven't seen it in a while.
Good. Yeah, right? Yeah, I mean, it's always good to rewatch. Like, you know, everyone should rewatch 16 Candles and be like, this is intensely problematic.
Because it's also funny because, like, you're watching it and you're working out your shit as a audience member, right? You said, like, I used to love this couple, and now I am, like, repulsed by it. And it's like, what changed? The movie didn't change. You changed in some way.
Me.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's art, baby, right?
That's art, baby. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of working things out on the page, where can people find you and get your new book?
Oh my God, I'm everywhere. I mean, I'm literally in a bookstore right now, guys, doing a book event for Everyone Is Lying to You, which is available wherever books are sold. And you can find out more about me on Instagram at Jo Piazza Author. The podcast is Under the Influence, and my Substack is Over the Influence.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
So my takeaway from all of that is I'm going to quit my job.
Really?
My job's.
All right, are you going to bake bread for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You're going to go out and you're going to buy bread. And you're going to say, oh, I baked it.
Well, okay, actually, this is a flawless transition into our final segment.
All right.
Stay or Leave, my soon-to-be patented game show, where I provide a hypothetical situation of something I might do in the future, and you tell me if you would stay or leave me.
All right.
Because marriage is a choice, not
a trap.
Great. I decide that our marriage would benefit from us having more traditional gender roles.
Okay.
So I announce that from now on, I will be doing all of the cooking.
Oh, no.
This is upsetting to you because I don't really know how to cook anything.
Not at all. Yeah.
And we end up eating a lot of pasta and peanut butter sandwiches. I tell you that if you even tried to cook anything for yourself, that it would be an affront to my femininity and undercut my abilities as a wife. Would you stay or leave?
In this hypothetical scenario, Allison,
Uh-huh.
have you devoted yourself to be totally submissive to your husband, as these tradwives do?
Oh, no. See, you're saying you would eat like trash if it meant that you I was completely submissive.
I'm merely asking for some
the
clarification that
I've decided it's just about the cooking.
Okay. All right. Well, then in that case, I guess I'm leaving. I can't deal with just only peanut butter sandwiches and what pasta. Are you going to try to get better at cooking?
I make good eggs.
Yeah. You do.
They're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like expand the repertoire a little bit, but I'm not going to like devote myself to it.
But you're devoting yourself to this whole new life. So you're not going to, and you're insisting on it?
It doesn't come naturally to me. It doesn't play to my strengths.
So you just want to be a bad tradwife.
Yeah.
That would be kind of a funny account. If you just are like on TikTok as at bad tradwife and you're just like,
right,
just doing tradwifery terribly.
Like when I post Instagram stories of the weird things I eat for lunch and then call myself a chef. Just like a larger continuation of that bit.
Yeah.
All right, something to think about. Now, what if...
I guess I'd stay.
You
I'm going to change it or background. I'm going to stay.
That's so nice. And we just eat out more?
Yeah, probably.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to another full-blown episode of Starter Marriage. If you wanted to see what we happen to look like during this recording, you can check out the full video version at youtube.com/justbetweenus.
And if you want to read what fictionalized versions of us are like, why don't you pick up Save the Date, Allison's novel. And if you want to see more explicit conversations about being married, pick up I Do, I Think, Conversations About Modern Marriage, both written by my lovely wife, Allison.
I don't even know what it means to work things out on the page. I never do that.
Okay, let's... You, like tradwives, are perpetuating a lie.
Also, if you want to submit your marriage moment or a suggestion for a topic that we should cover on the show, you can send an email to startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com. That's startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com.
And as we say in our family of dogs and humans, or
our woof.